So today I'm going to start off with my activity that is based on Chapter 8 of Developing Early Number Concepts and Number Sense. So the lesson plan and the time, so the title of this activity or lesson plan, it's going to be called the Dice It Up math game, and it's going to take students probably about 10 minutes to complete, and they're going to be in partners or pairs. The grade level that I'm going to be focusing on today is the first grade level. And these are just the math standards and the ELD standards that combine with this activity. So for the math standards, the first two, one of them is developing and understanding addition, subtraction, strategies for addition and subtraction within 20. But for this activity, it's going to focus mainly on subtraction, and then also developing and understanding the whole numbers and the relationships. So with subtraction, we're understanding how to subtract the bigger number with the smaller number in this activity. And then for the ELD standards, so what's going to be happening in this activity is students will be exchanging information and ideas to contribute as a partnership, and then they're going to discuss how to develop their math model for subtraction in pairs, and then they're going to write it down on their whiteboard and jot down what they know based on what is being rolled from the dice. And then the objectives of the learning lesson and the language objective. So the objective for this activity is for the students to be able to gain number recognition while rolling the dice and modeling their subtraction equations. So the students' goal is for them to explore the numbers and visualize them in a variety of ways when they roll the dice and when they're modeling their subtraction equations. So the language objective also for the students is to interact and work together while using academic language, such as takeaway, less than, or equal to. So their goal is to also exchange ideas and information when they're working together within this activity. So as the teacher, in the main academic language I would focus on and trying to hear from students would be like takeaway, minus, less than, subtract, how many more, the difference, what the whole number is, or what's remaining in the total. So the big ideas I want to focus on. So the questions I have, like, how did the students model their subtraction equation based on their dice? Did they place the bigger number first when modeling their equation? And then why does one partner use 2 dice and the other rolls with 1? And then the core ideas is having them be familiar with numbers using subtraction models, and then identifying number recognition when rolling their dice and modeling subtraction. So those are my core and main focusing questions. And then the materials that are going to be used. So in this activity, students will be partnered in pairs. One partner is going to be provided with 2 dice, and then the other partner is going to be provided with 1. The students will be given a blank sheet of paper, and they'll be asked to fold the paper into 4 squares, where they will use the front and the back to show their models of subtraction. So they're going to be showing their models in 8 forms. So I would start the presentation, and it would be called Dice It Up Math Game. So we would begin. So introducing the activity. So as the teacher, I would tell the class as mathematicians, our goal today is to be familiar with counting and modeling subtraction. Then I would remind the students what's important to do as mathematicians when solving and modeling subtraction. I would have students, raise their hands, volunteer, and some would respond by saying, putting the bigger number first, or being able to highlight key details when modeling subtraction and reading problems, or being able to count backwards with your fingers being held up. So after I would hear the different ideas, I would then present the activity, which I would present the title, and it would be Dice It Up activity. And then introducing the steps to the students. So as a teacher, I would have one student come up to me and demonstrate the activity with me, and then I will tell the class that they'll be paired in partners for this activity, and then I will demonstrate with the one student that's with me to roll 1 dice, and then I would roll the other dice, which I would roll the 2 dice, and he or she would roll the 1 dice, and then I would then ask why the one student has, or me, why do I have 2 dices? And then I would explain when modeling subtraction, the bigger number goes first. So when I have 2 dice, I have the bigger number, and then my partner has the 1 dice, and my partner's getting the smaller number. And then the second step of this activity. So after demonstrating how to roll the dice, I will then tell the students that with the blank piece of paper, they will fold into 4 boxes. And they're going to model 8 subtraction models or equations in total. And then they will model the highest number for the dice in circles. Then with the smaller number represented on the dice, they're going to cross out the certain number of circles. And then they will write out the equation as well. I wrote the wrong, right. Okay, and then asking the students to repeat the direction. So after demonstrating, I will tell the students before I count to 3, what are we going to be doing with our partners, just so that they understand the lesson and or activity of what's going on. And then the students would hopefully respond to, I'm gonna roll the dice and model the numbers we get on the dice onto the paper with the partner. And then I would say 1, 2, 3, and then we would begin. So this is an example. So as you can see on the left, player 1. So when they have 2 dices, it goes up to 6. So they would end up with maybe 12 or 10. Like they will always end up with the bigger number because they have 2 dice. And then the other player, they'll end up with 1 dice. So the highest they can go up to is 6. So that's how the dices work with the players. So they would, you know, roll at the same time, take turns. It doesn't matter. And then this is an example of how their sheet would look. So as you can see, it's folded into 4s, which in total is modeling 8 subtraction models. So for example, in the first one right here, so we have, well, technically there's supposed to be 8 circles. And then I would say with the lowest number, they're crossing X's on the circles. And so they put the higher number here, the lower number here. And then when you look at the remaining, there's 6. So it would equal 6. And then it would keep going. And then reflect on the activity. So after demonstrating the activity and finishing, within the 10 minutes, I'll ask students as mathematicians, what did we accomplish when doing this activity? And then the students, I would hope they respond to, we accomplished being familiar with using subtraction models and then modeling subtraction using dice. So being familiar with the numbers and then realizing that the bigger number goes first and then the smaller number goes next, and then we solve. And the assessment plan. So how will the content objectives tied into the state content standards be assessed? So the objectives will be tied in with the standards when they're developing understanding of subtraction strategies and when they're modeling subtraction from the dice and developing understanding of a whole number in the relationships. And then what's their criteria? And their criteria would be recognizing and being familiar with number sense, using the dice and modeling subtraction formulas. And then the second one is how are the ELD objectives tied into the ELD standards assessed? So these objectives are tied in with the ELD standards when the students are contributing their thoughts and ideas, developing their model of subtraction, and then also describing and writing down their models of subtraction. And then what's the criteria of this? It's communicating with your partners when rolling the dice in order to model their subtraction.